I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today, the Arakwal people of the Bundjalung Nation, and pay my respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. Are you ready to win at the game of life? Well, throw out that rulebook and get down to the business of being the best and most authentic version of you. Welcome to the Human Design Podcast. We're changing the rules around success, abundance, purpose, love, and life, where we're creating a planet where everyone can thrive in a world that loves and supports each other. I'm your host, Emma Dunwoody, a qualified master coach, human design expert, podcaster, and entrepreneur that is living the life of my dreams, breaking all the rules while doing it, making a huge impact, and living my design and manifesting miracles on the daily. Join me as I break down and simplify everything you need to live in alignment with your human design, teach you how to recondition your unconscious mind for greatness, and to take back your power so you can manifest your heaven on earth and serve the rest of the planet at the same time. It's time to give up the fear and step into your highest potential, to reach for the stars, to know and live your greatness. It's what you deserve, and it's what the planet really needs from you. So buckle up and enjoy the ride. If you use human design in your business in any way, stop what you're doing because you're going to want to hear this. I want to tell you about something we use in this business that has been responsible for bringing in nearly 25,000 new leads and over 6 figures in revenue in a completely automated and passive way. It's not too good to be true, so stay tuned. That incredible thing is the BodyGraph chart software. This is the total tool that allows us to put a human design chart generated on our website so we don't have to send people to another website for their chart. The best part is we can offer our customers the information we want them to have. If you know me, you know I have a different take on human design, and I want to make sure that the language is empowering, useful, and actionable. With BodyGraph chart, we can customize everything from the reading reports, chart links, and follow-up emails to make sure that they contain the information written and curated by me, so I know each person is in good hands. As for the tech, that's totally Taylor's thing, but from what she tells me, it's super easy to use and set up, and their customer service is incredibly helpful. It's really affordable as well, especially because you get a 50% off for 1 year as a listener of this podcast. Just visit the link in the show notes and use the code HUMANDESIGNPODCAST, all lowercase. It's by far one of the biggest investments in our business and gives us powerful automation technology that allows us to focus on the bigger picture. I cannot recommend it enough. Go check out the show notes for all the details. On today's episode, I talked to Mark Groves and Kylie McBeath. Mark is a human connection specialist, founder of Create the Love, co-author of Liberated Love, and host of the Mark Groves podcast. Mark's work bridges the academic and the human, inviting people to explore the good, the bad, and the downright ugly, and the beautiful sides of connection. Kylie McBeath, also known as Being is Beautiful, to her 130k Instagram followers, shares daily guidance and teachings on relationships, spirituality, and embodied liberation. She is also a certified health coach. And for your curiosity listeners, Mark is a 6-2 emotional generator, cross of defiance, and Kylie is a 4-6 emotional manifester, cross of tension. Enjoy today's conversation. Hey, and welcome to today's episode. I am super excited to have today's guests with me because I feel like I've been following their work for many, many years. And I got to be honest, I was kind of like, it's not really relevant to me. And given that I separated from my husband last year, all of a sudden it's become incredibly relevant. So welcome Mark Groves and Kylie McBeath to the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Isn't that funny how that happens with the work? It's like this kind of resonates, and all of a sudden you go through it and you're like, oh, now this is all landing in a totally different way.
It's so true. It's so true. Like I did a lot of relationship stuff within the relationship, but I was the one doing the growing and he kind of wasn't interested. So I was like, oh, well, we'll just, bumble through. And now it's super exciting to dive into your work and actually get to the bottom of, the dysfunction that's been playing out in my relationship for years. And because I'm now in this place where I get to heal, grow, evolve, make new choices, I always remember like Dr. Nicole LePera talking about be prepared being in a new relationship to feel uncomfortable, because you want to feel uncomfortable, not comfortable, because otherwise potentially that's these new patterns. But before we get into all of that, I want to start at the beginning with your story. Obviously, you guys are relationship experts, and one of the things I love about you guys being these experts is because it's very much your story as well. So I'd love you to share with my listeners your story of your relationship and how you got to this point where you managed to heal and transform into what you have today.
Where did it all begin? With sliding into the DMs on Instagram many years ago now. How long ago? 9 years.
Ago.
Yeah. So
when Instagram was a different place.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, the unspoken of dating app. So Kylie and I had followed each other for a little while on there, and I hit her up, demonstrated some interest, and she played 0 games, rolled right back with the most perfect. We looked at the text that we sent really early on, and my reply to her first reply to me was, "Well, that's about the best possible response someone can get." And I thought at that point I think like 36 or something. Yeah, I thought I'd played out the unavailable card, that I'd finished dating unavailable people. But as the joke of the universe has, that till it's actually completely resolved, it will show up again, but just unbeknownst to you sometimes, right? Like for me, there were a few orange flags. Like one, she was freshly out of a divorce. She had told me about a year and a bit, but it was actually about 8 months or something.
Well, you know how you go through the process of divorce, and you're separate, like you've been separated maybe emotionally for 18 months, but on paper it might be 8 months.
Yeah. So she danced in the gray of that.
Yeah.
And so that started to rear its head a bit in the early part of our relationship, but we confronted those things. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we kind of, for your listeners, we break our relationship down into 3 segments. Relationship 1.0, which is when Mark and I first started dating. And in relationship 1.0, our dynamic was Mark was kind of the savior and I was the damsel in distress. I kind of played out a lot of these, intergenerational scripts of what it meant to be a woman in relationship. I didn't want to take up too much space, too much power. And really that kind of played out in not only just in my romantic relationships, but also in my workplace dynamics as well, as like being able to be financially competent. That was a big piece as well in our relationship 1.0. And it kind of like underlines my journey with men, money, and mother. I feel like really were the three, the three M's that, Mark and I learned a lot about in relationship 1.0, because in relationship 1.0, we were dancing in what we define as a codependent relationship. And so for your listeners, how we define codependency is any relational dynamic where we outsource safety or security from someone or something at the expense of our core needs, our well-being, and
ourselves.
And the key word in that definition, or the key words, is at the expense of. Right? So it's like I'm sourcing safety and security through Mark, and at the expense of my connection to my own voice, at the expense of my connection to my own needs, my own well-being. So, and he was doing the exact same thing on the other side. It just looked a lot. I think sometimes when you're in the savior, helper, caretaker role, it looks prettier from a societal standpoint. It's like this is the high achiever who is competent in all of these ways and who is rewarded in our society, and in relationships as well. They kind of take on a little bit more of the burden, if you will.
Yeah, by design in some ways, to be able to keep people close because they need you. Mm-hmm. And so that was a lot of it was, for us to move to another level of relationship, we actually needed Kylie's voice. We actually needed her to be able to express herself. We needed her to be able, and I needed to be able to say I'm no longer interested in this dynamic as well. So like, in order for us to move to a different level of relationship, which we call relationship 2.0, we both needed to stop relating to each other from our wounding, and actually from the place of being two individuals who are adults who take responsibility for themselves. But also, which I think this is often a misconception, is that, you know, the opposite of codependency is overt independence, but that's not true. And that's usually where we go. We go from like being hurt through relationship to becoming an island and not feeling connected. And so it's actually, can we both honor our individuality and be in a relationship and use the relationship as a vehicle to become stronger as individuals and together? Because often, I would say, most relationship dynamics, they're not about getting stronger as individuals. The individual, it's themselves, gets erased in the relationship for the relationship, in some sort of altruistic dedication to love. I will lose all of me, which might sound good for a Disney movie, but it's not great for your life.
No, well, it sounds awfully familiar to me. Like, absolutely. And yeah, so I love the way in your book, the way you break down all of these pieces, because I mean, my background, I'm a behavioral coach. I've done a lot of work around relationships many years ago when I did training. But I love the way that you really break these things down into simple methods, not only to understand the dynamic of what's going on, but then to help us actually change that. Because I was really concerned for the longest time that I was never going to be able to heal my attachment style. You know, I'm like, God, is it always going to be like this?
Yeah.
So can we talk first and foremost about codependence? Like, I'm definitely, our relationship was, we were together for 25 years, definitely codependent. But as I did a lot of my healing, I think I healed a lot of my codependence, but he didn't. And he literally kind of got out of the relationship and he's gone straight back into another one, kind of running these same patterns.
Pretty standard, yeah.
So, yeah, right. So I'd really love you guys to talk about codependence, because I feel like, and you're the expert, but it's so incredibly common. I watch my 17-year-old and all of his friends and all of their relationships, and they're all mates and they'll hang out. They all go surfing. They all do these things until someone gets a girlfriend and then poof, like they just disappear. So can you talk about what codependency is, how it shows up in relationships, and potentially how we can heal that?
Yeah. So kind of going back to the definition of codependence in our framework is when we're sourcing that safety, security from someone outside of ourselves at the expense of our needs, our sense of wholeness, and our well-being. To kind of break down like that definition even more in terms of like, where is the origin of codependence? Because like you said, is like, I see this everywhere. I personally think that is just the common imprint of our relational dynamics at this time on the planet, and have been for the last, I don't know, probably hundreds of years.
Yeah, I agree.
Because listen, like under patriarchy, women have not had a lot of agency for a long time, and maybe haven't even seen that model in our family trees. And you need to be individuated and in your agency to break free from codependency. So that's like a really big piece. Yeah. And we touch on it briefly in the book, not as much as I would like to have. I want to write a whole book about that, specifically about the woman's journey. Do. Yeah. The woman's journey to like the mature feminine. It's something that there's not a lot of templates around that descent process of really understanding our own power. And
I love what you said, the mature feminine. Like, I think that's something that I'm wrestling with now, you know, because I've become the answer to everything, you know, like I probably spent so much time in my masculine in this relationship, and now I want to get into it. Like, I'm like, I want a man, like a real man, not just, I don't want to solve all the problems. I don't want to be leading all the time. I lead in my business. I lead everywhere.
Right.
So I love what the mature feminine, like, yes, please. Can you write me a step-by-step process? Thank you.
I will try my best, love. You know, in true feminine fashion, the descent is non-linear.
Yeah.
And it's like there are steps, and I like to call them gates or thresholds women must cross on the journey to this embodied, mature feminine. But really, that's the journey we're walking when we're walking out of codependence and back into embodied sovereignty and agency, so that we can actually be in interdependent reciprocal relationships with others. Is we need to be connected to ourselves first. And for women specifically, and I speak to that experience because, like you said at the very beginning, I like how you guys talk about your story. I only teach from my personal experience. I do not really go outside those lines because I like to embody my message. But right, like this journey is so important right now. Like it's so important that women come back to their bodies, back into right relationship with their intuition, with their instincts, because it's that right relationship with both the masculine and feminine. I hear you talking about how like the masculine is kind of running your show over there. And it's like, how do we come back into balance? And I think this is a question for all of humanity at this time, because that like dominator masculine is not only loud and in charge externally in all of our institutions and dynamics, but it's also internally. Like I know that for me in the sacred pause, and that's what we call when we take an intentional relational reset, where we hit the pause button on all of these codependent scripts and patterns that have been running our lives since we were born, and likely in our lineage for hundreds of years. It's when we hit that pause button that we're like, oh, wow, this runs deep.
Yeah. Yeah, you get to see, it's like anyone quitting a drug. You
Right.
know, you take a pause from the drug, and, you know, there's that quote from Gabor Mate where he says that the wrong question is why the addiction, the right question is why the pain. So when you stop the behaviors, the relating to whatever causes you to self-abandon or people please or put other people, try to help everybody, or that so many of us, because what goes hand in hand with someone who is a people pleaser and a helper and a solver and a healer is someone who needs those things. And so the other person has to self-identify, at least unconsciously, usually not consciously till the healing's required. They have to identify as being a problem, as not being smart enough, emotional enough, emotionally like they're the ones who most people don't know how to relate from health. They only know how to relate where one or both people have a problem to solve. And you'll see in really codependent dynamics, you'll see someone be sick, get better, and the other person gets sick because they don't know how to actually relate from wellness. So, you know, as Kai spoke to, the context of evolution, that is of course important for us to recognize, like, why do we self-abandon? Well, it's very normal in a tribal species that your question that you're always asking in every relationship of every kind, whether you know it or not, is, am I safe? And the second question is, am I safe to be me? And if the answer is not safe to be me, if that threatens your safety, then you're not going to be you. So we're really learning how to peel all these layers back. And I know you spoke about, you know, being in your masculine, and like, I actually just want a man. I don't want to I don't want to always have to be problem solving and leading and all that. And so what really has to come into the context there is so much of the messaging, which is why we see men more on the side of I'm broken, there's a problem with me, which is not. That's why when people read our book, usually the men relate to Kai's story and the women relate to mine, because I was the one dreaming about weddings and Disney and all that shit.
I'd already lived that out before I met Mark.
Yeah. Well,
I already realized the lie there.
I had to lay that one out. But the message we send to men is that they are broken, that they are toxic, that they are. So inherently, when you tell someone you need to be able to connect with them emotionally, yet society has told them their whole lives that they're not meant to be emotional. And if they are, they actually lose mate value. You know, all this stuff is just important for context, but it doesn't, you know, there's a big misconception that if we're being compassionate to something, we have to tolerate it. So like whatever might create toxic behaviors in me or dysfunctional or unhealthy relating, the context of why I do it is important because it allows me to understand that it's not my fault. But what I do with it is my responsibility. So society could have taught me that I had to get more into my feminine because boundaries are bad, because it's me being controlling, etc. All these misconceptions. That can all be true, but yet I still have to be the one who figures it out. And through relationship, and this is really the thesis of our book, is that it's actually through the frictions you have in relationship that you discover where you're still not free, where you're still stuck in these loops and these patterns and these wounds.
Yeah. To kind of go into the like origin imprint of codependency and how we are like orient to it in the book is it's based off of that core relationship with mother or primary caregiver. We like to bring it back to mother though, because listen, we're mammals and there's a very real relationship. The mother baby dyad is real. And it plays a big role, especially, I think in the West too, and I'm not going to digress too far, although I could. Mother is not honored, revered, supported, and resourced in a way that would allow her to show up in a really embodied, powerful way. So I just want to name that because I'm not here to shame mothers. Mothering is the hardest, most sacred work on the planet. And I feel an immense amount of grief for the lack of resource and understanding and reverence that we do have in our culture for mother. But based off of this core relationship with mother, when she is under resourced, when she has her own stuff that she hasn't been able to process, when she has her own wounding, it's like we feel that as babies, right? We feel that as young children. And instead of us feeling safe and being taken care of and nurtured via that secure attachment where there's a constant attunement and the child's needs are centered, we have somewhat not the opposite, but sometimes a whole spectrum of what that might look like based off of our developmental trauma, small t, big T trauma, is we start to learn that we need to take care of mother or primary caregiver, because if we take care of them, it's like if mom's okay, then I'm okay. So let's begin to orient externally around mother, around primary caregiver, intuit their needs, manage their emotional equilibrium so that I can maintain safety. And I'll figure out how to do that at any cost possible. And that's where that original imprint of like external orientation begins. Is like when there's a lack of safety, a lack of attunement, a lack of secure attachment in early childhood, we start to orient we start to find our regulation by orienting externally instead of finding it through co-regulation and internal resourcing, which sets us up for just what you described in your son's friends. And in these dynamics in early adulthood, it's like, okay, I get into a relationship, I start to disconnect from my friends, I start to isolate into a little bubble, and this can show up in many different ways.
Yeah, I mean, also, you take into context like the excitement of love, the excitement of arousal, the excitement of all these things that you experience when you're young, and then
totally, it's
like, do I want to hang
out
with my buddies?
Teenage boys, come on,
right? Do I want to hang out with my buddies or get a hand job? And sometimes that's the balance. And one thing I want to name too is like in our book we really talk about like one of the principles of being in a liberated relationship and liberated love is a dedication to the truth. And one thing a mentor of mine said that we didn't include it in the book, but I actually think it's so powerful it needs to be named, which is that when we even use the words primary caregiver, we're doing that because we're trying to give context like, hey, you still had parents too. They just weren't the ones that you were birthed by. And he said, when we actually use those words, we're protecting them from the reality that they didn't have it. And I was like, oh, damn, like that is potent. So we come up with this language even in the sort of psychological world as a way of still trying to minimize and protect their feelings, when the reality is we need to be with, okay, I did have these models of relationship. Maybe they were adopted parents, maybe they were grandparents, maybe whatever, but I didn't have my mom.
There's still a rupture that needs to be addressed.
And that's the key. You got to start with the core ruptures because all the other stuff is symptoms, but you actually have to get to the core. And there's so much, as Kai said, there's so much that we are responsible for in those early years of life that can be resolved, right? As adults, we can heal these things, but we really have to point to that, like, man, there's so much responsibility as parents. And as Kai said, we are not supported in the way that allows a mother and a father, but especially a mother, to be well resourced, to be attuned and attentive and all the things.
Yeah, it's so true. I actually look back, like when my kids were babies, and I think the poor things, like if only I was the mother I am today for them when they were babies, you know? So what I'm super curious about is this, you know, the attachment style piece. I remember learning when, like years ago, when we went to therapy about this dysfunctional attachment style, and I'm dysfunctional, and I'm anxious, and or at least I was demonstrating anxious attachment, and he was demonstrating avoidant, and it just like that made so much sense. And I remember at in the same moment being like, oh my goodness, like can we actually change these behaviors? And where I am now, I actually look at the way I'm kind of visioning being in a relationship in the future, and I can see that the things that I want now are very different. You know, I don't want to be with someone all the time. I'm definitely looking for someone who's got their own passions, their own purpose, the things that they want to do. But I had this real genuine fear that, oh my goodness, am I ever going to have a natural, oh my God, now the words just left me. Not, thank you, secure attachment style. And does my dysfunctional attachment style impact on my kids? Like I've been very, conscious over the years to be almost overdoing it, like making sure that they feel loved and safe and that their needs are met. And like I've worried about it. I've let it go a lot now. But can you talk a little bit to that? Like attachment style, can we actually heal it? Potentially how we heal it, and then the effect it is having on our kids. Like maybe we did start them off in a world where they have some sort of dysfunctional attachment style, but as we parent them, you know, to 18 or whatever, is it possible that we can help them heal as well?
You got it.
Well, first off, the conversation about attachment, and we cover it in the book, is because it really gives a lot of, it's a very simple framework to understand how we relate. And so I think that's why we really love it on that, from that basis. And now when we talk about codependency, the person who's more of the like trying to save, heal, all that stuff, generally is more anxiously attached. The person who is the problem, needs the solution, all that, is more of the avoidantly attached. And we also talk about disorganized attachment, and that being that you don't have to become secure. You can pivot between insecure attachment styles. So someone who maybe, you know, really does want a healthy relationship, yet whenever they get close to people, they don't trust them. That could be really common, where people are like, oh, I love you, I love you, I love you. And, you know, maybe the person is like, oh, I love you too. And you're like, actually, I'm just going to take a little space, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's easy to pivot between the two. So you can heal your attachment style. It's called becoming earned secure. And so for everyone, knowing like your attachment style is just what you're prone to when you sense insecurity or a lack of safety in a relationship. So they're just the ways that you handle it. The way I like to explain it is, it's really not your relationship to the other person per se. It's your relationship to the space between you and another person. So someone who's anxiously attached doesn't like space. When there's space, they're afraid that it means abandonment or rejection. And someone who's more avoidantly attached, space is, they don't like too much.
Or not enough space.
They don't like not enough space. And the reason is because if they don't have enough space, they might become enmeshed with you, right? And then I'm responsible for your feelings. I might lose myself. So my strategy is to make sure there's extra space just so that doesn't happen. Now, of course, we end up in relationship together because that is the curse of the universe, that really at the end of the day, what it is that each person's way of relating is validating the other person's perspective on love.
Yeah.
So in order to transform that, which is possible for everyone, and you talked about the impact it has on our children. For sure it does, especially early on. But, you know, like you said, you know, I wish I was the mother I am today back then. But the reality is that like you learned everything that you know today through your experience, and you can love them today in a way that allows them to even have context and learning opportunities from that, right? And really at the basis of exceptionally healthy relating is the ability to repair. And, we talk about in the book that like, hey, it's never too late to give the bags back to the people above you, even if they're not alive, and to also take your bags back from your children. What do you think?
Yeah, I think everything you touched on is important in this conversation with attachment. The only thing I'll add is the somatic piece of understanding the nervous system.
Yeah.
Because that really adds a more tangible, I think, workable. It brings it out of the mental realm and into the somatic realm for me.
The felt sense. Yeah.
The felt sense of like understanding what's actually happening in your nervous system when there is an avoidant attachment script running, or an anxious attachment script, or a disorganized. It's like, oh, this is what my nervous system is doing, and this is why it's doing this. And then just having that awareness and that attunement of our nervous system allows us, one, to cognitively understand, and then build in resources to support us in coming back into more regulation, whether that's via co-regulation with an animal, a friend, a mentor, a therapist, somebody else, or self-regulation, meditation, walking, running, etc. There's a lot of different ways that we can support our nervous system and expand our capacity for discomfort, because relationships are going to bring up our stuff.
Yeah, that's a feature, not a bug.
And how we historically relate might be that anxious, avoidant, disorganized. But it's like, as we increase our capacity to sit with the intensity of the emotional world and inside, and also the intensity of maybe a dynamic, as we increase our capacity to be with that within ourselves, then we can find new pathways of possibility to relate in our adult relationships that will look new and unfamiliar to younger parts of us. That, like, even in the book, we talk about like to recreate, to like not delete old attachment scripts, but to like reinstate them, like change them, shift them. We have to get okay with being uncomfortable. Yeah. Because that's a part of the process. It's like, we're going to move towards something that historically we've coded as unsafe. And can we sit with that intensity while there's a repatterning, and like really learn discernment and trusting in self of like, I can read this room. I can read this person. And that's big, deep work of like being willing to open your heart again, being willing to orient in a new way that has, historically not been safe for you, right?
Yeah, I love that. It's really it's interesting, like sitting where I'm sitting right now, like just watching this, almost the behaviors, the unconscious behaviors that I run in this one relationship. Like my ex and I are, pretty on good terms, co-parenting, all of those sort of things. But I actually just watch, like I'm a completely different human around him. Like I watch all these behaviors play out. And one of the things that I've recently, well, not so much recently, but probably in the last 12 to 18 months, one of the things I've noticed that significantly shifted in the rest of my life is all my relationships. Like the quality of my relationships have increased. So that makes me curious to ask you guys, like being where I am right now, like I don't want to necessarily jump into another relationship to like make sure I'm healing these things and changing these things and doing all these things. Because that's the pattern I did before. I don't want to do that again. I want to take time. I want to take a process. But there is also this part of me that's like, is it working? Is it is it changing? And one of the things that I see in all my other relationships is the fundamental change. Like I'm a different person in my friendships, as I said before, as a parent, so let's say we're not in a relationship right now and we're doing this work. Is it fair to say that this is going to show up in all of our relationships, not just our most intimate one?
I mean, I'd say that the relationships that because you will tend to, whoever you get triggered by tends to that's like activating a wound that you have. So you can get triggered at work, right? That's for sure. You can get triggered in team dynamics. You can get triggered by feedback from a boss. So
from your children.
Right. Yeah, they're great.
Yeah.
Parents, of course, right? Like our parents. What were you going to say?
It can show up everywhere. And it does.
Yeah.
As soon as you start to heal it in one area, it starts to come up for review in every other area.
Well, yeah. And self-abandonment, I got asked the other day, like, what is self-love to me? And I was like, it's really this simple. If you want to love yourself, you have to love your choices. So if you make a choice that you don't love, then that is and you keep making it, then you are not loving yourself, because you don't love what you're choosing. And so it actually comes down to that simple, right? And so when you start to create boundaries in your life and start to, like, separate from romantic relationship, you start to create an individual self. You're like, oh my God, I matter. What I need matters. This might be the first time I've ever done that. A great way to recognize where that might be needed is wherever you have resentment. Resentment is 100% of the time due to prioritizing other people or something above yourself. So what happens is that you have this ability to recognize where you need to be more boundary. I'll fix that. Sorry, it's not working. Sorry, the mic stand is like falling off. You have this opportunity to start to draw boundaries around who you are. And when you do that, it's representative in your relationship to food, your body, because self-abandonment, and if you look at the data, for example, from the adverse childhood experiences study, people who've been through a lot of trauma tend to have much higher levels of autoimmune disorder. So you see the inflammatory impact that self-abandonment has on people, high conflict relationship has on the body. So when you start to heal, everything starts to heal. Like I can't even count the number of times I've talked to someone who then leaves a relationship and their mysterious hip pain goes away, or their shoulder pain, or their jaw pain. Their nervous system gets back into a more regulated state. And then what happens is you're more rested. So you can now be more observational of the world. When you're not in a dysregulated state, you actually take in more information. In the science of optimism, you can see more opportunity. So that then brings forward, kind of like whack-a-mole. You start to see, I don't know if you know that game where the little head pops up and then you hit it. So it's like you start to see that with your stuff in every area of your life. And then you're like, oh, I got my shit together. And then you start dating and you're like, damn it, I thought I had that thing.
Yeah.
And that's where I think of, like, one of my favorite quotes from Harville Hendrix and Helen Hunt. They say, you're born in relationship, you're wounded in relationship, and you heal in relationship. So you actually need relationships to complete the healing, because a boundary by yourself is just a person hanging out in the woods dealing with their own needs. But a boundary that bumps up against someone else, that's where the mastery starts to need to play out. That's where you start to see, I matter. When my need bumps up against their need, how do we attempt to meet both needs if possible? But how do we discuss that? How do we dance in that?
I love that. And it leads me to the probably obvious question. When we're in relationships, and again, my own personal experience, especially early on, how do we even identify our own needs? Because I remember kind of feeling like I didn't have any, and as I started to train as a master coach, I was like, hang on a second, you're talking about these need, I have these things, I have these need things, like, and I couldn't even get my head around, like, well, what are they? How do I work out what they are? So let's say someone is in a relationship and they're going through this process. How do they start to identify their needs and then start owning them, like actually discussing that with their partner when it feels, because I know for me it was incredibly uncomfortable to even admit that I had them, let alone ask for them to be met. And then on the other side of that, it was terrifying because I was like, well, if I've got needs and they're not being met, he's got needs that aren't being met. And I'm like, can I even do that? Like, so it was hard. So can we talk a little bit about identifying our needs and how we start to have that conversation?
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing about codependent dynamics is no one's true core needs are being met. No one's winning in that dynamic. Our survival needs are being met in terms of what has historically made us feel safe. But yeah, I laugh, like a knowing laugh when you say that, because I'm like, I had to print out a list of needs from nonviolent communication. Are you familiar with that list of needs from the framework? I was like, I need a needs list. I don't even know. I don't have the language. And so many of us were not given the language to communicate our needs or even understand what's happening in our internal world. So I hear you in this like tender, vulnerable journey of like, I have needs. What is a need? And how do I begin to name those?
Yeah.
For me, a communication framework was necessary. Like, and that's kind of, I use the XYZ. In my experience, when X happened, it made me feel Y. And the need I have is Z. Like, it was just like, I needed something to hang on to from a mental framework perspective, because in navigating those conversations, I'd become so dysregulated because it was not something that it just didn't feel safe. It felt vulnerable. It felt all of the things when you start to move towards something that you have historically neglected. So I think having a needs list, like even understanding what a need is and how to be able to start even putting language around it, having a communication framework, like as simple as the one I just described, the XYZ one.
Yeah, I love
And
it.
then 3, for me, what was fundamental in understanding when I had needs and or when a boundary was crossed was really starting to track resentment and frustration.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, when do I feel resentment and when do I feel frustration? Because there's that saying is like underneath frustration. Is it underneath?
Unmet emotional need.
Underneath frustration is an unmet emotional need. Anyways, it was that sentence. And I was like, okay, I'm going to hook onto that. So every time I'm frustrated, I need to get curious. I need to start figuring out what's actually going on internally so that I can bring voice to it and share it in my relational dynamics. And Mark and I had a really beautiful conversation around needs in relationship 1.0, where I was like, I don't even know what needs are. Cause he was like, what do you need? I'm like, excuse me?
Oh my God. The first time I
What
ever
do I
asked what
need?
she
What are you
needed in a
talking
relationship,
about?
she sounded like Beyonce.
I was like,
I don't need
anything.
no man. I'm like, all right. Okay.
Here we go.
Here we go. We got to unpack this one. I got one of those independent ones.
AKA, I have
Yeah.
no idea what a need is. And that feels very vulnerable. And I don't want to have to need anybody, because the last time I needed somebody, it led to an immense amount of pain. So we're going to,
Yeah, wow. That resonates.
Yeah. So it's like, I'm actually going to stay away from that needing anything from anybody piece.
Yeah, I'd say the person too that struggles more with expressing their needs in the relationship dynamic is the other person creates space and actually inquires. So they're the ones actually just like not forcing, but like almost like encouraging the turtle to poke their head out, you know, like, hey, what is your need? And it's like, what?
We had agreements around it. We had a needs check-in where it was like bi-weekly. We went over our needs and then we checked in on each other. Like, how are you doing? How are you feeling? Is there something that you need to express? We had that. And then also we made agreements around my frustration, because I had historically been disconnected from anger and frustration. Like that wasn't a safe emotion for me to like connect to. And so in our relationship 1.0 and then also in 2.0, it was like, how do we create safety around me reconnecting to this core emotion? Because it's an important part of my internal experience. And also it's going to be very important that it's safe for me to express my frustrations in the relationship. And so we talked about that and it was like, okay, every single time you're frustrated, I'm going to bring it forward. And that was like a commitment I made to myself, but also in the relationship. And that was interesting, because I really liked to be the one in the car where you just look out the window and keep looking out the window while you're like bubbling inside. And it's like, and then one day it like implodes. That was my previous strategy. So it was like, oh shoot, now I got to actually look at this stuff. I can't just withdraw and avoid. It's like, oh man, it would be so much easier to just put this all under the rug. But that's not what I signed up for. And hopefully your listeners are like, yeah, I'm not here for that relational dynamic anymore either.
Yeah.
So that's what I'd say to that.
I love it. And I love even, you two doing this every 2 weeks, having that conversation about needs and just normalizing it, making it so accessible and a normal part of communication, which, in turn makes you feel so much safer and also makes it feel safer when, something else comes up or a conversation that in the past would have been hard to broach. Even that process will become so much easier, making it such a priority. I feel like I was never taught to make my marriage a priority, yet I was also taught that you just have to stick at it until you die. So it was like this real
Right.
polarity. Like, well, is it important or isn't it important? And
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of people in that situation right now. Just out of my own curiosity, I just want to share. You talk about frustration and anger, and Kylie, you are a emotional manifester. So this anger piece for you, we call it your not self, but it's a theme of yours that when the anger shows up, it means that you really are out of alignment. So I love what you said, that you really had to, get to know that emotion, trust that emotion, be able to express that emotion, because that's a really important part of your design. And interestingly, because Mark's a generator, his is frustration. So when you two are in aura together, these are two really important dynamics that are telling you, like, guys, you've swerved off the road. You're operating from the mind, from fear. So yeah, just a momentary human design geek out sesh.
I like it.
So what I'm really curious about is the masculine and the feminine. We're living in this time that there's so many people talking about it, that I used to feel like, yeah, I've got a really good grip on it. I've read David Data's book. Yep, that's fantastic. Let's tick the box. However, now I feel like I'm in this world where I'm like, I'm definitely more in my feminine than I ever have been, but I'm still more in my masculine than I want to be. But it's almost like, and I think you said something at the beginning, Mark, that made me, it almost kind of like makes me, triggers me a little bit, because I'm like, I feel like I go, yes, I just want a man, but what does that actually mean? And is that accusing men of not being men? Like how can we actually be in our feminine in the most resourceful way and find a man that's in his masculine in the most resourceful way? Like, let's talk that.
This is the work we're doing right now on the planet. This exact conversation is the work we're doing, and having to heal between men and women. It is such nuanced, deep, and sometimes what I'd say muddy waters. There's a lot of stuff to navigate in this conversation.
Well, there's a lot
sure.
of sensitivity because there's a lot of wounds.
There's a lot of
you
wounds
have,
between the masculine.
you have, like, at the end of the day, if someone says, I want a really emotionally intelligent, connected man, and yet doesn't choose that, then that there's a disconnect between what they say they want. And this can obviously go both ways. What they say they want and what they're choosing. So, there's an unconscious belief that's getting in the way whenever there's a disconnect between choice and desire.
Yeah.
Keep going. No, go.
Nope.
I don't know what I was going to say. Go ahead.
I was just saying, it's like the question I kind of orient to in this conversation, and I get really excited about it, is who do women have to become in order to create the space both internally and then externally for that reality to exist?
Oh, I love that.
Right? Because that puts us back in the power position, with empowering position, I should say, like with our own selves. So for me, in kind of coming into congruency with both the masculine and feminine, and again, there's still pieces I have to unravel and work that needs to be done in this arena. But it was really eye-opening for me, Emma, during my sacred pause. And we talk about this in the book, where I went on my no man diet and started to really look at my relationship to men specifically, and what I was sourcing through men, through the male gaze, through my own inner masculine. And I was shook, because I thought it was all external, where it was like, this domination, this control, like I thought it was coming from the external in. And then I hit the pause button and was like, oh shit, that inner tyrant, that inner patriarchal father, that punishment is sitting in my own mind too.
Yes.
Like I had to really look at that. And it was really challenging at first, because I started doing this practice. It's going to sound really simple, but it is this simple sometimes, where I was devoted to putting on body lotion after the shower slowly for like 5 minutes. And this is, I didn't operate it slow before. It was like, go, 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 right? Our cultural narratives are like, go, 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 never stop, be at the top, succeed, keep going. What's your next win, etc. And it's like, the feminine is like slow, dissolution, messy, emotion. Like, in the best of ways, like nature, fertile,
Yeah.
all this stuff. And so, yeah, I slowed it down. And I remember the narratives in my head were like, what are you doing? This is ridiculous. This is stupid. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I am beating myself up. It was not safe for me to slow down. It was not safe for me to hit the pause button and relax and receive. And that's really,
Yes.
underneath all of this, when we talk about masculine and feminine, and again, there's a lot of different ways to look at this. But so much of it has to do with the safety around receiving.
Yeah. Yeah.
Receiving nourishment, receiving love, receiving care, receiving abundance from the earth, being open, right? Because you have to be open to receive. And it hasn't been safe to be open. So why hasn't it been safe to be open, right? And it's like, well, there's many reasons, and really, really, really good reasons not to be open and to be guarded and protected on the planet at this time. And still, for women, we have to navigate, the predators in the mind and also in the external. Like that's real.
Yeah.
It's just real. And so there's a lot of stuff we're having to navigate to be able to trust ourselves with men again. To trust ourselves and trust our discernment, and then also call men forward into the men that we are desiring at this time by being the women who hold a new bar of integrity. I think that's one of the pieces, and I'd be curious to hear what you have to say on this, Mark. But for me, in the work that I do with women, I'm like such a fierce advocate for fierce love, which means like you hold the bar of integrity. We do not tolerate abuse of any kind. Anything that's out of a lack of integrity. And I think this is the call forward that I have for men is like, men need brotherhood circles. They need other men to hold them to their own integrity. And you're not seeing that on the planet. You are seeing it in small circumstances. Sorry, this is not about, I think men are doing great, but it's like,
we're definitely seeing it.
We're seeing it. It's really beautiful to see, but it's like, we all need to hold a higher bar of integrity. That's just what it comes down to for what we tolerate. And the only way we can hold a higher bar of integrity for what we tolerate is being so damn okay being alone.
Yeah, that's right.
Like I'm almost a bit concerned I'm too okay with being alone, just quietly.
Well, that's where you could check in. Am I using my aloneness as a way of protecting me from vulnerability? My mastery of aloneness. But I mean, I agree with everything that Kylie's saying. And for me, it's like, how do men become so integrated and responsible for their own space that they create the safety, the non-judgmental, non-reactive, as best we can, because we're human, space for our partner to soften and receive and trust and surrender? Because, it's like the last time a woman might have surrendered in relationship, if it has ever happened, could have been in their lineage, and their grandmother was raped, was murdered, was a witch, it was burned. Like there's so much that contextually you look back and you go, well, there's so much context that's required. But it's like all of that again is we still got to deal with what we're handed. So it's like, how do I as a man get to know myself on such a deep level and heal so that I can hold space when she wanted to rage once at the masculine, which was not my doing. It was at the generalized masculine. I was like, all right, let's go. And I just sat there and I represented what she needed to say. I'm sure the neighborhood heard what she had to say.
And this is just it. And this is why I think our book, and we don't really talk about this to the degree that I want to, is like there's an externalization of the systems we live in and the impact of those systems. So in the impact of patriarchy on both men and women, and the wounding that has coalesced over the last, I don't even know how many thousands of years. Because once we have that context and understanding, we can kind of expand how we're holding this whole conversation, where it's not just the war between the sexes, but it's actually like, okay, actually, we've been playing this out for hundreds of years and no one's winning. We're not well. No one's happy, really. No one's connected to their hearts and in their power, true power. And there's lots of healing work to be done. And, as a mother to a son, I have been blown open with so much grief for the male experience on the planet at this time and for my father and my masculine line. I'm like, holy cow, like there's so much to process and to be with. But the beautiful thing that Mark's saying, and I'll speak to as a woman, is like when he can hold the space for me to actually express what needs to be expressed and vice versa. Wow. Can we just clear it all through our system and be like, okay, now we can actually move forward because it's been addressed or it's been processed. And this doesn't have to look like our journey specifically, but I'll never forget. There's been many moments in our relationship where we've pulled what's felt like collective or archetypal shadows out of the underworld and into the known world of our relationship. And every single time we're brave enough to name the shadows that are both our individual experience, or I'd say individual, collective, and archetypal, the safer we both feel. Like our nervous systems are just like, oh, finally, we're willing to actually face this not so cute part, this exploitive part, this, like we all have got these parts. And it's like, when we can name them and sit with them, wow, it's so powerful because we're like, oh, okay, now we can actually feel safe because you're willing to look at your own shit.
Yeah. And it usually involves the validation of something that is hard to name. Like that's what I've noticed in our experience, that it's like, it's usually like, I can't name this, but I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
Like I know something's going on here that's deeper. And I can't keep coming to you with what I'm feeling and you keep saying it doesn't exist because I know something exists here. And so when we then orient to it from curiosity, then it's like, and so it's usually like this validation of the feeling like, oh, I'm not crazy.
Oh my goodness. Even your comment just confirmed, like validated me, because I've had that feeling in my relationship for years that I'm like, I keep bringing this thing to the table and he's like, no, it's not. No. And I'm like, I'm sure it is. Am I mental? But I think, and going back to that patriarchal piece, I think that's also one of the things that blew my mind, coming out of this relationship, in my world, what do you do when you come out of a relationship? Well, you read all the feminist stuff. You read all of these things. And I was so convinced that I'm like, oh, I'm not that conditioned, like both my parents worked and my dad did most of the cooking and I'm not that. And I was just like, what the fuck? Like I am so conditioned, and it blew my mind.
So deep.
So deep, and I'm just grateful. I'm super grateful that this shift is happening. I mean, I don't know if you guys know Byron Bay in Australia, but that's where we live. So it's a very every, second corner there's a men's group and the other corner has the women's group. And so we have a lot of that going on. And I even see my kids, I've got two boys, they all, especially my eldest, they all sit around and talk about how they feel. Like my eldest kind of did disappear when his new girlfriend, when he started seeing someone new, and all his mates were like, come on, we're not seeing you. So they have these really beautiful conversations about it. Now he makes this conscious effort to be with all of his friends and sort of invest in all his relationships. So I feel very grateful that
That's
this
great.
work is out there, it's happening, and these generations are just, it's easy and obvious for them. Do you know what I mean? Like that's how it feels to me. When I was his age, it was not the case. But I'm super conscious of your time. Thank you so much for being with me. I've got like 50,000 other questions, but I'm going to let you go. Thank you too for taking the time to have this conversation with us today. I really appreciate you both. Thank you, listeners, for being with us today. I trust you got what you needed from today's episode, and I so look forward to having you on the next one. Bye for now. Thanks everyone for being here all the way to the end of the podcast. I hope you got lots of value out of it. I certainly had a lot of fun doing it. Could I please ask that you share this podcast with friends if you found it valuable? And also, bonus points, could you leave a review for me as well on Apple? It would be greatly appreciated. If at any point you would like to be on the podcast, or you've got questions that you'd like me to discuss on the podcast, by all means get on my socials and DM me. Everything you need is there in the show notes. Have an awesome day. Bye for now.